Hi everyone, and welcome to Season 2, Episode 2 of Political Frenemies, the podcast where we disagree robustly, and we certainly will be, no doubt, for much of today's programme, given who our guest is, who I'll introduce in a moment. Well, Chris will be agreeing with him, I'll probably be disagreeing with him. But we always remain friends afterwards. That is why we're called Political Frenemies. So welcome if it's your first time with us. Glad that you found us. I'm Mathew Hulbert. For my sins, as Chris would say, I'm a Lib Dem activist and a former Lib Dem councillor. I should point out that I am still a member. That sounds really former, doesn't it? But still very much active with the Lib Dems. My fellow co-host is Dr. Chris Newton. He worked for that PhD, who is an academic and former Tory defence advisor when they were last in opposition. And we're joined today. I can't believe we've actually had him back. No, we're delighted, actually. It's Mathew Goodwin-Freeman, Conservative councillor, author, and look what I've got here. Look, there it is. Look, there's the book. Oh, look at that! What promotion? Come on, there you go.
Thank you. I'll send you the bill in the post. Oh, look.
Oh, quite right. And of course, political commentator Mathew Goodwin-Freeman. Hi, Mathew. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Thanks very much, Matthew. How are you?
Very well. And we thought we'd best hit you back because we have to say you were a big hit in the last season. So me and Chris chatted it over, and we thought, well, okay, on the balance of things. No, we're absolutely delighted to have you back. You were fab last time. And Dr. Chris, how are you?
Yeah, I'm good. Yeah, just busy as always, beavering away, working. But there's a lot on this week. Quite a dramatic week in many respects. And I'm really looking forward to having Mathew G back and to debating and to discussing the events of the week.
Absolutely, and you're quite right. It's been a really busy week. So this week we're going to be talking about the Mandelson sacking as our ambassador in Washington. We'll then turn our attention to the Labour deputy leadership race, Phillipson versus Powell. Mathew Goodwin is going to have so much to say about that because he's such a knowledgeable person about internal Labour politics. And then we're going to be turning to the very serious events in America this week, the killing of the Conservative commentator Charlie Kirk, and some of the British political reaction to that. So that's our programme this week. Guys, shall we do it?
Yeah. Go for it.
Great. So we'll start off with the sacking of Peter Mandelson. I mean, something, of course, that he's used to after his previous times in government. I think I'm right in saying that this is his third sacking from a senior position, albeit that an ambassador, I guess, isn't strictly speaking in government, but it's a government-appointed role. And obviously on this occasion, it's to do with his association with, his friendship with, Jeffrey Epstein, the convicted paedophile, and the controversy surrounding that. Now, I don't think anyone is suggesting, and we're certainly not on this podcast, that Lord Mandelson has done anything illegal, but it's about what it looks like, and whether it was wise of Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister, to have appointed him in the first place. I've got some thoughts on this, but as I'm hosting, I'll turn to my guest first. And Mathew, why don't we go to you first? What have you made of this week?
Well, I mean, as you said, this is not his first time of being sacked, not his second time of being sacked, but it's his third. Peter Mandelson, hooray, what a guy to get back into government and give some power to. He called Jeffrey Epstein his best pal in the birthday book, which has got released over in America. It really goes to show what Keir Starmer's lack of judgment is as Prime Minister of the country. I have serious concerns about what Keir Starmer knew when he knew it. And she doesn't get much credit, but I actually do want to give credit to Kemi Badenoch this week because in Prime Minister's questions, she could have used those 6 questions to ask about anything at all, 6 different topics, whatever it was. she drummed home again and again about Peter Mandelson, trying to find out what Keir Starmer knew, when he knew it, and getting some truth, accountability and clarity. And within 48 hours, Peter Mandelson's gone. So, credit to Kemi Badenoch there. But, I mean, it is just the latest in a string of chaos and resignations for this Labour government. This time last week, we would have been talking about Angela Rayner's resignation. Let's go all the way back to the start. Transport Secretary sacked because she committed fraud. We've had the homelessness minister making people homeless. The business secretary who has no experience of running a business and claimed he was a solicitor. We've got the Chancellor, who seems to forget that she worked in complaints, not actually in accounts. I mean, it's just every single bit of this Labour government seems to be falling apart. The mainstream media have cottoned onto this. They're now saying that Keir Starmer's losing a senior person around every week. So, I don't know. Who's it going to be next week?
Well, I'm bound to say, Matthew, that it's almost as bad as the Tory is, isn't it? So,
at least ours was dragged over 14 years. This has been 14 months.
that's very true. I could say, in terms of Labour and the Tories, as a proud Lib Dem, a pox on both your houses. So there we are. Chris, what have you made of?
I don't think people can recognise him when they get shown a photo.
So Ed. Chris, what have you made of this week?
Well, I mean, Mathew G, I should say, is not Comrade Mathew G. Is right. This is yet another case of Labour misjudgment. It's another case which everyone will question the judgment of the Prime Minister, of Keir Starmer. He seems to be getting himself in these difficulties, as Matthew said, every week, and there's surely going to be some consequences for the Prime Minister in his position and his team. I mean, he was only last week. This was a new phase. This was phase 2. It was supposed to reorganise the number 10 machinery, put Darren Jones in there. Everything was supposed to be working more smoothly, and it just he spent half of the week defending Peter Mandelson, defending him, saying that he has full confidence that he's going to stay in post, when I think everybody knew that this, what was revealed was damaging, was going to lead to Mandelson being removed at some point. But Starmer didn't see it until right at the last minute. So this is. I do have one or two things to say about Kemi Badenoch as well on the back of that, but I'll leave that to a bit later.
Yeah, thank you. So well, I mean, as I'm hosting this week, let me just play devil's advocate for a moment. I broadly agree with you both, but let me just play devil's advocate for a moment.
We're all in agreement.
There's an argument.
I don't think this has ever happened before.
I know it's so rare, isn't it? But I mean, let me just say that there's an argument that Peter Mandelson was very effective as our ambassador, and that he got on well with the Trump administration. And there's an argument to say that actually, as ambassador, he has done a good job, and that we're losing someone that actually has been quite effective in that role. Now, does that change the facts around the actual situation and these emails to Jeffrey Epstein? No, it doesn't. And I don't think there was any way that Mandelson could carry on. But there is an argument to say that actually his going makes us less effective in Washington. So you can either of you can answer that in a set. But also, I mean, was Starmer right to appoint him in the first place? Well, I mean, looking at it now, probably not. But I was listening to various podcasts earlier today where people were arguing that these things are very well in hindsight, aren't they? I mean, I guess that they decided that it was a risk worth taking. And, you can decide whether you think it was or not. But, I mean, Matthew, let's come to you on this. I mean, do you see any traction at all in the argument that in the role he's actually been quite effective?
No. Your only argument of him being effective was that he got on well with Trump. Well, that was only after he grovelingly apologised for comments he'd made about Trump before. I don't think he was incredibly effective. And yes, hindsight is a wonderful thing. If only he had been sacked twice before in cabinet positions and there was some sort of track record to tell us what Peter Mandelson was actually like. No, completely. People like I and others was saying when Peter Mandelson got announced as our British ambassador to the US, what the hell are you doing? He's been sacked twice. He's been marred in scandal and controversy. So, no, I'm sorry, but unless you can come up with another way he's been effective other than getting on well with someone he had to grovelingly apologise for slagging off years beforehand, I don't have any sympathy whatsoever.
You don't. Sorry, Chris. Let me just come to you in 1 second. You don't think, Matthew, that he played a part in helping secure the trade deal?
You mean the reduced tariff deal? It's not a trade deal. Let's not drum this up as something it isn't. We're not Labour Party spokespersons here.
Chris.
I mean, the other thing as well is that apparently, according to reports, Starmer was warned by the government machinery, that this was going to be a risk, and he ignored it. And I don't know whether I'm remembering this correctly or whether I'm just imagining this, but wasn't there a time where someone wanted to appoint Lord Frost in an ambassadorial position? And sort of Labour was like freaking out and saying, no, it's got to be proper. It's got to be, a Foreign Office appointee. It's got to be a career diplomat. And yet, as soon as Starmer comes into power, it's okay for him to rip up the rules. I mean, we know that from last week that Labour people like to apply rules differently to them and the others, a two-tier system, if you might want to call that. So again, we need to see what the advice was, what Starmer knew, what was given to him at the time, and why Starmer decided the decision that he made. And at the moment, it just seems to be that Starmer. Obviously, Peter Mandelson very well sort of has a reputation in Labour circles, and he does have that reputation. But again, it's another catastrophic decision for Starmer, where the consequence is everybody's questioning his judgment, his leadership, and a number 10 operation just 2 weeks after it was supposed to be reorganised and made more effective. And there's question marks about Morgan McSweeney as well, whom we're told is this genius, this real genius, this tactical and strategic genius. Well, we haven't seen any of that so far. It's been chaos.
Yeah, absolutely. It has. Just to push back on Matthew a little bit, I mean, you mentioned the previous two sackings, but actually, I think in at least one of those, if not actually both of them, he was officially found to have done nothing wrong. So, I mean, I think you can overstate, Peter Mandelson's past record. I mean, I've heard it said actually that during his, I guess, relatively brief stints when he was a minister, that he was a very effective minister. So this is the irony about him, is that there's an argument to say that when he's in positions, he's perfectly competent and actually quite effective. But he just also, there's the Petery side of Peter Mandelson, which is that, he likes people who are very well known. He appears to like power. He appears to like people who are very well off. And this leads him, it would seem, to make slightly odd judgments about who he associates with. And, look, I mean, I read those emails this week, and not only were they nauseating, they were, I don't even have the word to describe them. I mean, they were just awful, and he clearly couldn't carry on in his position given that. I mean, I think this is probably the end of, I mean, he's made so many comebacks, who knows? But I think this is probably the end of his frontline political career. And obviously it's been a very, very patchy one, and I'm not sure how history will judge him. In terms of moving forward then, I mean, who do we think is in line to replace him? And I've heard various names. And would it be a political appointment? So I've heard names like George Osborne raised. We'll ask Matthew what he thinks about that in a second. Or would it go back to being very much as someone that we don't really know? But isn't there a danger of that the person could be absolutely walked over by the Trump administration? Matthew?
Yeah, I mean, the only thing that I found really nauseating was that picture of Peter Mandelson in his dressing gown. I mean, God, that was,
Oh
you know,
no!
that's something you
Oh
need to have
no!
after the watershed. But look, I mean, the replacement for Peter Mandelson, I agree. You know, the Prince of Darkness will be replaced by someone we probably have no idea who it is. I have heard names similar to, as you said, you know, George Osborne being thrown around. That would be very, very interesting. But it's probably going to be someone none of us have any idea who they are. And actually, if I was advising Keir Starmer right now, I would just have someone boring. Someone bland and boring that nobody knows, just in through the door, get the appointment done, quiet, simple, no attention need be, you know, drawn to it. Because the last thing you want, which we're going to come on to, is with, you know, with this deputy leadership contest, somebody being thrust into the spotlight that isn't the Prime Minister. We need some stability in this country.
But there's an elephant in the room here that neither of you two lovely right wingers are addressing, and that is that the other person to have been shown to have had one of the other people a great association with Epstein is President Trump. Now, funny enough, neither of you have mentioned that so far in this, because obviously that quite colours things, doesn't it, for you lot on your side of the political eye? I mean, come on, let's have some consistency, shall we? If we're gonna condemn Peter Mandelson, let's hear from you two about President Trump's association with Epstein.
Go on, Chris. You go first, Chris. Well, I'll warm up.
Well, we'll have to see. I mean, we can only really deal with, you know, our country and our appointees, and you know, this is the issue that has been thrown up for us this week. Is Mandelson. So yes, I mean there has been questions. I'm not quite sure how far I can really go, given you know, given we don't know the full details or anything like that. But at the end of the day,
Chris, isn't the difference? And you know, I heard this said on a podcast today that the difference is, and perhaps this is where Mandelson has been naive or rather too honest, is that he's, you know, he's kind of semi-admitted to the fact that, yes, I wish I'd never known him, and blah, blah, blah. Whereas Trump has just said, no, fake news, guys, fake news. When it would appear, at least, I'll put it no stronger than that, there clearly was. I mean, they're in video together, so they clearly knew each other.
Yeah.
But there was an association, and there was this thing that was probably sent by Donald Trump to Jeffrey Epstein, which is very, very questionable. But Trump just goes, fake news, guys, fake news. I mean, so is that what Mandelson should have done? Should he have just denied it all?
Well, obviously not, because the emails came out. So I mean, the reason why he went was because the evidence was overwhelming, and he ultimately had to go. But at the end of the day, Mandelson is accountable to the British government, and the British government sacked him. Trump is accountable to the American people and the American institutions, and it's for them to make the judgments. And when evidence come out, then of course we can, or if I should say evidence comes out, then of course then we can all make our own judgments and comments. But at the end of the day, it's Mandelson that's accountable to the British government, and that's what we're commenting on, and he's been sacked as a result of that.
I was going to pick up on the same point as well. The fact that Donald Trump is the one who can pull the strings in America. You know, we've seen the whole argument of him trying to hide the Epstein files, then redact the Epstein files, then actually there aren't such thing as the Epstein files. Look, I'm not going to sit here and say, that's brilliant, that's what we need from a president. If anything, I think the opposite. I think Donald Trump should just get it all out there. Let the American people decide. You know, that's what's happened here in the UK. Here in the UK, Peter Mandelson's done probably the honourable thing and say, yes, I had this association in the past, I was completely duped, I feel really bad about it. I'm sorry, there's more embarrassing stuff to come out. And that's enabled the Prime Minister to go, do you know what? Goodbye. And make that decision. Donald Trump's doing the opposite in America. But the thing is, ironically, in America, that works for his fan base. So it's a really... Look, I for once again, Matthew, I slightly agree with you. Donald Trump should just get it all out in the open, because I think actually he will survive it. I think Donald Trump would survive the Epstein scandals in the same way that Peter Mandelson hasn't.
Yeah, and I would say, sorry, and I just want to add this, and also when it first sort of came out, the response of Mandelson and the Labour machine was to effectively deny it and to say this isn't a story, and it ultimately didn't work for them. So in that sense, they tried that strategy and it didn't work because there was evidence there that ultimately led to his sacking.
So going back to Starmer's judgment then, which in a British political sense is probably what this story is most about, because Mandelson's gone now. The question is, should he have ever have been appointed? I go back to something that I've heard previously and that I've said many times on this podcast. I've been led to believe that Starmer hates politics, that Starmer hates the politics of politics. And I'm not sure that you can do a job like Prime Minister and be apparently pretty unaware and unbothered by how things are going to look, what the perception is going to be, what questions are going to be asked by the opposition and by the media, and seem to think that you can run a government and 10 Downing Street and the whole operation as if you would if you were CEO of a company. Politics isn't like that. And all three of us know that. And it would appear that Starmer has a real blind spot to the politics of politics. And that can't go on, can it, Matthew?
Well, remember, Matthew, Captain Flip-Flop is a lawyer, not a leader. He was the head of the, Crown Prosecution Service. He absolutely, doesn't understand politics. And remember, he became leader of the Labour Party, promising to be a mimic of Jeremy Corbyn, and then has moved completely to the centre ground. Keir Starmer has U-turned and flip-flopped on every single thing that he knows about. So yeah, of course he doesn't like being a politician, but guess what? That's the job you're doing. He's a lawyer, not a leader, so we can't be surprised. I mean, the biggest thing that told us this was how he was going to be was the fact that Labour had 14 years to get ready for government. They bang on about 14 years of chaos, 14 years of chaos. For the last 2 or 3 years, it was obvious that the polls were going to be right, that Labour were going to win the next election. Where was the planning? Where was the policies? Where was the bills and laws ready to go? It wasn't there. So, of course, we could see Keir Starmer was going to be a disaster as Prime Minister because he could never make up his own opinion. He flip-flopped whenever he did make an opinion. And then he came into government and appointed Sue Gray to be in charge of the first 100 days. Well, God, those went well, didn't it?
Yeah, and can I add there? And also, this is the consequence of Starmer not being fully tested as leader of the opposition. And I know, Matthew, you're going to roll your eyes at what I'm going to say, but the media, they gave him a really soft ride. He wasn't sufficiently tested. Okay, fair enough then. But he wasn't tested, and ultimately when it came to actual real scrutiny and when he actually has to make decisions, he's a disaster, and that's because the media didn't fully scrutinise his plan or his lack of a plan, and I mean, to be fair, the Tories didn't help. I mean, obviously not. Those last few years of government especially were not good and ultimately paved the way, but the media played their role as well, and this is where we are. We have a prime minister who's not good at the politics, who has no idea what he's doing, has no idea what he wants to do in government, and we've got 4 more years of this. God, I don't think we can survive this.
It won't be 4 more years of him. Yeah. I can guarantee you that it's not going to be 4 more years of Keir Starmer.
Well, we'll get on to both the Labour deputy leadership and perhaps the Labour leadership in just a moment. But just perhaps finally on this whole thing with Mandelson, what about Morgan McSweeney then? Because again, we're told that he is this great strategic kind of political genius, and I think a lot of credit is given to him, no doubt rightly, in terms of the election victory. Doesn't appear to be quite working out in terms of actually governing, though, does it, Matthew?
So Morgan McSweeney, for those who don't know who he is, was the person brought in to replace Sue Gray. So you're not really going much up there in the ladder. It's not very high bar. Sue Gray was in charge of the first 100 days of Labour government. Let's not forget, these are the 100 days where they scrapped the winter fuel payments, 100 days where they made up that there was a £22 billion black hole, but no one could point towards the evidence of it, and the first 100 days where they went, OK, we're all going to go off for summer now, goodbye, see you later. So Morgan McSweeney was brought in to replace Sue Gray. I think we're in phase 2. I'm pretty sure phase 3 will be starting next week at this rate. It's been an absolute disaster. Things have got worse, not better. They tried to make those reforms to the benefit system and welfare cuts, had a Labour rebellion, backtracked on all of it. They've brought in more, tax rises at the budget, to the record levels. Small boats crossings are now the worst year in history for it this year. 29,000 people, 55,000 since Labour became government. It is absolutely heading in the wrong direction. So, yeah, Morgan McSweeney brought in to replace Sue Gray. Sue Gray looked after phase 1. Morgan McSweeney's looked after phase 1 and 2. I think we'll be on to someone new next week for phase 3.
And it's been reported that McSweeney sort of pushed for Mandelson as well?
Yes.
Yeah.
Apparently they're very good friends. Apparently they are very, very good friends and in very regular contact. So I've heard today. Let me put something.
Sorry, can I just make? Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, I wanted to make a point about Badenoch.
Yeah.
I just wanted to follow on from what Matthew G said earlier, and that is her prime minister's questions.
She's finally listened to you, Chris.
Yeah. I was about to say, because I've been saying this since January. I may have even been saying since December on this podcast that she needs to focus on one, or at least when a minister's on the rope, she needs to relentlessly focus on hammering away. And I've been saying this since January. Now, last week with Rayner, she missed that opportunity, and I just completely lost it on Twitter, and I sent out this very angry tweet, which went viral, which the BBC and Guido and everybody picked up on it. But lo and behold, she followed my advice, and I like to think that she that was the thing that prompted her. I have no evidence to prove that, but the thing that I've been saying ever since January turned out to be right, didn't it? So Matthew H. So maybe you shouldn't be calling me Dr. Newton or King Newton or Emperor Newton. Maybe you should be calling me Super Genius Newton, because I've been proven without the shadow of a doubt that my thinking.
Honest to goodness. Oh, dearie me. No, I have to say, I thought it was her best performance that I've seen at Prime Minister's Questions. And Keir Starmer looked deeply, deeply uncomfortable. And then what was the weird thing? I've been meaning to ask you guys, and so this is a good opportunity. What on earth was going on with Keir Starmer when he said, this is what she should have been asking last week?
Yeah.
What was that?
Like Keir Starmer bringing on the attacks to him. I think, to be fair, you're completely right, Chris. Kemi missed an open goal last week. Everyone ripped her apart for it, and she learned the lesson for this week, thank God. But I think Keir Starmer thought that would do him good, the fact of pointing out Kemi Badenoch's weakness, but actually just made him look really, really poor. And then did you see the question as well from the SNP, where Keir Starmer almost shouted back at them? I really thought he struggled with Wednesday. It maybe was the starting cracks showing that this is really getting to him. I don't know.
It was kind of like admitting that he was hiding something last week. It's just odd. It's just weird.
I mean, neither of us three have ever kind of, had to take Prime Minister's questions, and I'm sure it's very stressful and things get said and all the rest of it. But that seemed just a really odd thing to be saying. So, I mean, anything else to be said on Mandelson? Any other points from you two?
Bye-bye, Prince of Darkness. Go stay in the shadows and don't return.
I tell you, I mean, this probably is the last we'll see of him, but I wouldn't put it past him making some kind of return in the future.
Well,
So let's turn.
apparently,
Yeah,
I don't want to talk about Peter Mandelson much more, but apparently he is furious at this decision. He thought he did the right thing by holding his hands up, getting everything out in the open. And apparently, sources close to number 10 are saying Mandelson wants to bring Starmer down. So we could be seeing the next couple of weeks lots of stories being fed to the press about Keir Starmer, and I wonder who they're coming from.
well, we look forward to that immensely. So keep your eyes peeled on the political media, folks, and of course here on Political Frenemies. Let's turn now to another headache for Keir Starmer. I'm almost feeling sorry for the bloke here at this point. The Labour deputy leadership race. This was, of course, caused by the resignation of Angela Rayner, which we covered in depth last week. And I should just point out, on behalf of me and Chris, thanks so much for all of you who tuned in to the pod last week. It was our best rated podcast ever. So me and Chris are absolutely delighted by that, and hope the trend. Thanks, Matthew, and hope the trend continues throughout the rest of this season. It has to be said that it was a very particular set of circumstances last Friday, but we're really hoping to keep up the momentum, and that's why we invited Matthew G along this week. So we're going to see Bridget Phillipson as kind of the establishment candidate, the Starmerite candidate, against Lucy Powell, who of course was until last Friday the leader of the House of Commons, and then was unceremoniously sacked by Keir Starmer. So, Chris, perhaps you first on this one. What do you make of this race, Phillipson versus Powell?
Yes, it's amazing that so much energy has been poured into the biggest non-job in politics, really, isn't it? I really don't know what the deputy Labour leader is actually going to do, given that we've already got a deputy prime minister. Right. We have no idea whether the deputy leader is going to sit in cabinet or not. But there's a couple of things. I mean the candidates first of all. Just like the two, they're very odd. I mean, obviously they came to the fore and everything, but they're two of the sort of least pleasant sort of characters in the front line of Labour politics. You've got Bridget Phillipson, who said on air that the rights of illegal migrants mattered more than the residents. So I don't know how that's going to play down. Well, we do know how that's going to play down in the Red Wall. So if that's her target market, then I don't see that working. And of course, the whole business with her with regarding private schools and not really showing any real empathy to the children who's been sort of disrupted, who had to leave their private school and now have to find another school. Again, not particularly nice. And Lucy Powell, who's said again on air that the rape, that bringing up the rape gangs is a dog whistle, and I think she also wore that "Never Kissed a Tory" T-shirt as well. So they're not. I mean, obviously they will appeal to their base, but whether they can appeal to the wider country, I pretty much doubt it. I mean, I don't really see the point of it other than it's obviously to appease their base and so forth. But I always thought this idea of having a separate elections for the deputy leader was stupid anyway, given that there's always the risk for tension between the leader and the deputy leader, as we saw with Starmer and Rayner, and other examples as well with Corbyn.
Matthew?
They say a week is a long time in politics. God, I mean, this week just gone. As you said, Angela Rayner last week resigning. We all thought we'd be talking about that forever, but then Peter Mandelson obviously thought he had other ideas. Yes, this is box office stuff, isn't it? This is your popcorn at the ready. Lucy Powell versus Bridget Phillipson, the P versus the P, the Keir Starmer hater versus the Keir Starmer lover. I mean, it's just going to be absolutely boring. We're going to have weeks and weeks of nothing. I'm just God. I mean, as you said, Chris, there's no guarantee that whoever becomes deputy leader is even going to get a seat at cabinet, because Keir Starmer's already had his reshuffle. God help us if he gets a whiff of the cold or coughs or anything, because we'll have Prime Minister David Lammy. God, it's going to be a disaster. I mean, this is just absolute pointless waste of time. It is all a distraction from the chaos that they're causing in the government, the chaos that they're causing with the economy. Can I just be really, really clear? The country is literally pounds and pennies away from going bust. We're effectively bust. Today we got the
really, Matthew.
0%
Really
growth. Yes,
really,
yes, absolutely. Rachel from accounts is going to have to
ridiculous.
Go to the IMF, cap in hand, asking for a bailout. We are really, really on the breadline here. So the last thing we need is this distraction of a Labour deputy leadership contest. It's all irrelevant anyway, because we all know what's going to happen. Angela Rayner, now she's got time back on the back benches, is going to start those conversations with colleagues, start having those words about what she could do as Prime Minister, and give it maybe a year's time, might not even be then, and we'll be having a leadership challenge.
Well, I think it's really interesting, isn't it? That, I mean, obviously, if Phillipson wins, she is in cabinet, obviously. But if Powell wins, I mean, that will be another potential kind of king or queen over the water. And those backbenches are becoming increasingly filled with people who have reason to be bitter with Keir Starmer. And this is always the trouble when you have large majorities, is that factions rise up on the backbenches, and with the greatest of respect to the Conservatives, and that's not something you'll hear me say very often, the opposition doesn't come from the opposition parties. The opposition comes from within your own party, your own internal setup. I mean, I agree with you that, I mean, in a sense, what is the point of this race, except for the fact that, Labour has had a deputy leader going back, kind of forever. Sometimes it's been seen to have worked. I think you could argue that for John Prescott, for all of his faults. He played an important role within that government, especially in terms of peacemaking with Blair and Brown. And at other times, it's not really worked. I mean, I have to say, in the Lib Dems, we have this situation where everyone thinks there's a deputy leader of the party, when strictly speaking, there isn't, because actually Daisy Cooper is just chosen by the MP. She's the deputy leader of the Commons party. But for kind of, ease of description, she's just called the deputy leader. Am I right in saying in the Tories that there is no such role?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, we don't really need one. We've got a leader, and we're trying to get her made more well known at the moment.
No. I mean, it's pretty much up to the leader. Badenoch doesn't have one really. Sunak had Dowden. And I think there is the role there. I think really what you should do is have the Chancellor of the Duchy of Lancaster as the Deputy Prime Minister, performing that cross-government coordination role.
So that is now Darren Jones, right?
Yeah. So
God help us. Can't even point out women and children. I mean, God.
He's meant to be very effective, I'm told. I'm led to believe.
Well, don't
haven't seen much of it on TV.
To play Guess Who, because he won't get the women and children right.
There is everything comes back to immigration with you two, doesn't it? Every single thing.
There is one other point with Bridget Phillipson as well, and with government is that Bridget Phillipson's responsibility at the moment is meant to be sorting out unruly classrooms, and now she's spending most of her time sorting out the unruly Labour Party. So what
that's the quote, folks. That's the quote. Yeah. You for those of you who love our shorts, that is it.
Picture of the Labour Party, basically.
Yeah, but the thing, what's she going? What's she spending her time on now? Is she spending her time on doing her actual job, or is she going around the country campaigning?
That is a very good point. People do not like ministers or MPs being given multiple briefs, because it suddenly means, well, hold on, you can't focus on anything. And it does take time. It takes 6 to 8 months to get your feet under the table, to really understand a brief and to know it through and through, to actually see some changes. So it is a good point that, Bridget Phillipson could be too stretched here. It might work perfectly for Lucy Powell Powell in that regard. One thing I did want to talk about, though, which I just wanted to say with the Lucy Powell situation. Remember, there was another choice, ladies and gentlemen. Belle, let me get her name right. Belle Ribeiro Addy. Had anyone heard of her before this week? She was the other choice. She was the left-wing Labour candidate that people wanted to put forward. Only problem for her is she could only get 24 nominations and they needed 80. So despite having a party of 400 members of Parliament, she could only convince 24 people to put their name next to hers. One, I presume, is also her name. But instead of do you know what? I didn't get it. She put out this long statement on Twitter this week, or X as you want to call it, saying she hadn't secured the high number of nominations required to proceed in the deputy leadership contest. Little bit of dig there at the 80 mark. I'm disappointed that the full range of Labour members' views will not be represented on the ballot paper. This is the less than democratic process. I'm sorry, you needed 80 out of 400. It's not the party's fault that you didn't get 80 out of 400. It's your own. But once again, the lovely fluffy left blame everyone apart from themselves. It can't be their fault. It's always someone else's fault. That's just ridiculous.
But don't you think so?
Emily Thornberry as well didn't get anywhere as well.
But
she would have been triggered. She would have been triggered by Matthew G's t-shirt.
Oh, the problem is she tried to run before she could walk, and we've seen how she tries to speed off the conference. You know, Emily Thornberry couldn't get there in time. So, you know, thank God she's not got through to the next round.
And by the way, that's a lovely t-shirt there, Matthew.
Thank you. Well said. I had a smaller version when I went on to talk recently, and I got absolutely ripped apart in the comments on the way back on the train because I was getting lots of interesting looks from people. So instead, I decided to get a shirt twice as long. So it's a nice, massive Union Jack shirt. You know, so very happy.
Look at that. We won't debate flags today. We'll leave that for another week. But I was going to say that. Don't you think that? There's a danger, though, with the left-wing candidate not going on the ballot paper, that actually the left, the soft left, and anyone who doesn't like Starmer, which is an increasing number of people on Labour's backbenches, will now unite around Lucy Powell.
Good. Why not? Give Starmer a bit to worry about and give him someone who's going to keep him in check. That's what we need. We can't have more people being put into the cabinet or put into roles going, oh, Keir, everything you're doing is brilliant. You know, cutting winter fuel payments, lovely. Raising taxes, just what I want. You know, cutting benefits, brilliant. We can't have that. We need someone to hold him to account. And that's actually what Angela Rayner was doing.
We've got the Tory party for cutting people's benefits. So Chris, were you surprised that no men nominated?
Well, I think they probably wanted to balance Keir out with a woman, and given that Labour is the party of diversity and affirmative action and so forth, although you do get one or two who are ambitious, so I'm a little bit surprised there, but essentially I think everybody knew it was going to be it was going to be a woman to balance out, especially given that Labour hasn't had a female party leader as well. So I don't think they could, for them anyway, they would be comfortable with two men in charge.
No, and I still think that a certain Master Wes Streeting has got his eye on the big prize and he's playing the long game. So keep an eye on him. Oh, absolutely.
I do want to pick up both of you. I do want to pick up both of you there. This is where I'm going to make myself unpopular. Why does it matter that it's a woman from the north? Surely the best person should get the job. Like, I'm really sorry, but this is what I really don't like about Labour.
I agree with you.
Why wouldn't that be a woman from the north?
It could be. It absolutely could be. But what I didn't like was how everybody in the first 2 or 3 days went, it has to be a woman. It can't be from London. It's got to be from the north. Well, no. If it's the best person for the role, then they should get it. I don't care whether they're white, brown, black, male, female. It doesn't matter. They've got to be the best person for the role. And I just thought that was a bit... she framed it in the wrong way to say it had to be a woman and it had to be a woman from the north.
The only trouble with that argument is that it means that in all the thousands of years of our Parliament, or however hundreds of years, whatever it's been, of our Parliament, that means that the best people were always white, upper middle class, straight men. Is that what you're telling me?
Apart from the 4 female leaders that the Conservatives have had, 3 of which have been female prime ministers. But yeah, go on, crack on with the fact that it's always white, straight, heterosexual men.
Yeah, we all remember Liz Truss.
The Party of Affirmative Action has done less for affirmative action than the Conservative Party, who just believes that the best person should get to the top.
We all remember Liz Truss, Matthew. Don't worry about it. We all very much remember.
You're talking about affirmative action. Yeah, 5 minutes in, you were calling for a resignation. Matthew H.
Well, can I also say that not that anyone's bothered about internal politics within the Lib Dems apart from me, but one of the things that I've said, I know, we do still exist. And we are actually the large. We are actually still the
jet ski recently. So
we are actually the largest third force in the Commons in a century. But nevertheless, but yeah, we do have some internal elections going on at the Lib Dems for the moment for the position of president and vice president. And one of the reasons that I'm backing the person that I am for the vice presidency is because he's from a minority community, and he's from the north. And I don't think that every leadership position within the Lib Dems, so leader, deputy leader, president, and vice president, should be held by someone who is white, upper middle class, and from London or the south. Because I happen to believe in diversity.
I believe in diversity as well, but I don't have to force it to happen. It should just naturally happen. Sorry, but that's ridiculous. Affirmative action is just a polite way of saying racism. It's racist to the people that you're affirmatively actioning against. It's just ridiculous. I don't care. I do not care who the Deputy Labour leader becomes, as long as everybody's had a chance to put their name for it. We as the Conservative Party don't have these quotas, don't have diversity, equality, inclusion quotas, don't have affirmative action, and we are the party that has had 4 female leaders, 3 of which have been prime minister, the first ever female prime minister. And we're the party to have the first Asian prime minister in Rishi Sunak, and the first party that had the big 4 being made up of different ethnicities. So look, I really do not see where the judgment comes from saying we have to have quotas because that's the only way people are going to get to the top, because it isn't. We are the living proof that actually the best person can get the role. And
I should say, I mean, my comments earlier, I mean, I completely agree with what Matthew G said.
Of course you do.
But my comments earlier, I wasn't when I said that.
That's why it's no bias or anything. It's just because I'm correct.
My comments earlier about Labour, I mean, I'm just saying that's the Labour mentality. It's not what I would agree with. It's Labour's mentality to have a male leader and a female deputy leader and vice versa. But best person for the job.
And neither of you think that there are structural barriers to people from minorities and to people from working class backgrounds to getting into politics. If you two believe that, then you're hugely naive, because there are.
Parliaments we've ever had. This is one of the most diverse parliaments, genderly diverse, ethnically diverse. So no, absolutely not. There are no barriers now, because anybody can get there if they try. Anyone can. And actually, it's not a judgment on the person who's trying. It's a judgment on the people stopping them get there. So actually, it's more a reflection on the Labour Party that they have to bring in these quotas to get people from diverse backgrounds to get up the ladder. We don't have to. We let them have a chance. So, no, actually, you've spun it round the other way. You're correct. Bad on the Labour Party for having these quotas. Bad on the Labour Party for having affirmative action.
And neither of you two think that, for example, it costs an awful lot of money to stand for Parliament, and some people just don't have that.
Well, look at these independent candidates, who a lot of them, if you look at the expenses, got elected for far less money than some of the members of Parliament who've had tons and tons of donors behind them.
Okay, we'll leave that there. So turning now to the actual Labour leadership. And I just raised that because I was listening to a really interesting podcast from the New Statesman earlier today, and Andrew Marr was saying on there that he has it on very good authority that the king over the water, a certain Andy Burnham, currently the mayor of Greater Manchester, is eager beyond words to return to Parliament in a Manchester by-election that could easily be created, and he wants, in not too long a time, should that happen, to challenge Keir Starmer for the Labour leadership and ultimately, therefore, for the prime ministership of this country. So I don't think Andrew Marr says these things unless he has pretty good sources on that. And we've been seeing quite a lot of Andy Burnham just lately. From a Tory perspective, Matthew, is he someone the Conservative Party would fear?
I'm going to say something that I don't think any other Conservative has actually ever said. Andy Burnham's actually a really good mayor. He's actually really, really good. He gets stuff done. He delivers. There's things in Manchester that you can see that he's made to happen. And also, I'm a Man United fan, so he's happy for us to get a new stadium as well. But I do give him credit. He is actually a really good politician. He restores a bit of trust in politicians. So yeah, it's an open secret. He wants to get back to Labour, get back into Parliament, run for leader. I was actually just looking at the odds. Wes Streeting is the favourite. Second is Andy Burnham. And then a long, long list of members of Parliament. So Andy Burnham is second favourite to be the Labour leader without even being a member of Parliament. So, yeah, I can see it happening. I think there are a couple of people now circling around Keir Starmer. I heard from one MP today that they think Keir Starmer should resign. And that's the first Labour MP to say that publicly. So we're getting to that point of, right, are we counting down the days? Do we need to get the lettuce out of the fridge? Wes Streeting, Angela Rayner, Andy Burnham, maybe, but he's going to have to find a seat to be able to run into Parliament. Let's see. It's going to be an interesting year.
I've forgotten his name, annoyingly, as I'm sat here, but I think he's the MP for Denton and Reddish, who was a long-time associate of Andy Burnham. And he's in a little bit of difficulty at the moment, and he's likely to go. And that's the by-election that I'm talking about that could well happen. The interesting thing that was being said on the New Statesman podcast today was that the only thing that could potentially stop that is Labour's NEC. And apparently, although Burnham has many supporters on the NEC as a whole, apparently it's going to be a particular subcommittee of the NEC that will be deciding on this. And apparently, the reporting is that Morgan McSweeney has a majority of his people, Starmer people, on this subcommittee. Now, I have to ask you, Chris, can we possibly see happening? I mean, what would be the controversy that flowed from Starmer's people on the NEC preventing Andy Burnham from standing as a candidate for Parliament?
Well, again, it will be utter sort of chaos and and I should imagine it will be open season in terms of briefing and counter briefing and so forth. So you're right. Starmer and Starmer's people have to play this sort of very carefully. But again, it just goes to show that this is a party that's in chaos at the moment, and are they focusing on good governance, or are they focusing on their internal battles?
I should just say, I've just remembered the name has just popped into my head. So Andrew Gwynn, who is in a little bit of difficulty at the moment, and who may have to stand down. And so I think the plan is to install Burnham as the candidate should the NEC allow it. Burnham would almost certainly win that seat, and there we are. He'd be back in Parliament, very much the prince over the water. Now, does it show more strength for Starmer, albeit probably through gritted teeth, to say, of course I want a talent like Andy Burnham back in Parliament, or should he do the thing that I think he probably wants to do, which is try and prevent him from even standing? But I just can't believe that he's going to allow that to happen. It would look dreadful.
No, he's got to let him back in, because it is the fact of, you're stronger with it in the tent than outside. Clive Lewis is the MP who today said he doesn't think Keir Starmer's up to the job. So the first to put their head above the parapet. Let's see what happens. One other thing that might stop Andy Burnham becoming a Labour MP and a Labour leader is actually Labour. Because one thing that Angela Rayner's been bringing in when she was the housing government, levelling up local government, whatever that title ended up becoming, was stopping mayors running for MP. And I know this because my good friend Sadiq Khan is rumoured to be wanting to go back into Parliament and run for the leader of Labour. And that was one of the things that Angela Rayner put into the bill that is making its way somewhere through Parliament. The fact that if you are a mayor, you cannot also be an MP. So that would be interesting, because it would mean that Andy Burnham would have to resign as Mayor of Manchester to take up being a Member of Parliament. Now, is he going to roll the dice on giving up the mayoralty, effectively, a role where you get billions of pounds to spend with far, far less scrutiny than you do as a government Member of Parliament, for the hope that he might become leader of Labour, but also Wes Streeting wants to become leader, but also Angela Rayner, but also probably everybody else thinks they could do a better job.
Imagine Burnham versus Streeting versus Rayner. I mean, that would be an epic battle.
The problem with that is there wouldn't be a crushing victory. You want a leader to win, 2-1, 3-1. That would be, half a percentage in it. And then at that point, you've got a leader who 2/3 of which don't want them. You just got more chaos. So yeah, that would be box office. You hear that, Powell and Phillipson? You need to step aside and let Burnham versus Streeting versus Rayner.
And also, so Michael Portillo sort of springs to mind as well. He came in. He was in a very senior position, but ultimately didn't get the job in the end. Because of his ambition, and because of internal party shenanigans and so forth. So maybe that's a cause for Burnham to hesitate as well, because it's there's no guarantee he gets in, but there's no guarantee that he'll eventually get it.
Absolutely not. And so, yeah, I mean, who knows? A year from now, we could be looking at a situation where the Labour deputy leader has changed and the Labour leadership has changed. I think Chris will remember me saying in the last season, quite early on in the last season, that I was hearing that Starmer could go in 2026, and I think we both kind of poo-pooed that idea, but I think it now seems increasingly more likely that he'll decide to fall on his sword next year.
Yeah, I think I was more open to that than you. I think from memory.
Did I not suggest it?
The super genius in me again, sort of. Yeah.
Oh, dear. Well, yeah, right. So that's Labour's travails. Look, let's turn now to what's happened over the past few days in the United States, and obviously an extremely serious situation. And this was the, I don't know any other word to say it, but the assassination of the conservative political activist Charlie Kirk, and a very well-known individual in the United States of America, perhaps less well known here, but I think I think anyone into politics, and certainly I guess as you two are both kind of political figures of the centre right and right, this is someone who was very well known, a very influential figure, and he was, as I'm sure everyone knows by now, he was doing something which he regularly did, which was speaking and debating at a university campus in the United States, and literally as he was talking, a shot was fired, and he was killed. And this happened kind of live on video. And And so clearly an absolutely appalling thing. Now, look, I'm going to let our viewers and listeners into something now. I didn't necessarily want to be talking about this on the podcast, not because I think it's anything other than a horrific event, but that it's difficult for me because this was someone who I profoundly kind of disagreed with, and I think that much of his rhetoric was not only kind of appalling, but actually in its own way damaging. But I think I can think that, and I do still think that, for the record, whilst also absolutely thinking that political violence is always unacceptable, and that includes in this case. There's never an excuse for it. And earlier on today, I was flicking through Facebook as you do, and I came across a video that someone had put together of clips of him and his children, his two children, his two very young children. And I think you'd have to be absolutely heartless to not look at something like that and get a tear in your eye, because whatever his political views, this was someone who first and foremost was a husband and a father, and his life shouldn't have ended in this way. And so as difficult as I think it's been for folks on the centre left and left like me to quite know not what we think about it, because I hope if you're a good, decent human being, you think it was appalling. But obviously, you then have the thoughts coming in to your mind that, but this guy has said this, and this, which I disagree with. But I think, and I hope you two agree, that you can hold the position that you absolutely fundamentally disagreed with him on multiple issues, but that this the way to answer that is through debate and through dialogue and through trying to beat him in argument, and obviously not through this appalling thing. So I hope Chris, especially, who I had this long DM dialogue with this week about what to do about this subject, thinks that what I've said is fair.
Yeah, I mean, I should say that we're not a world politics podcast. I know we started off talking about more sort of world issues and talking about different countries, but we've decided that this would be a British politics podcast, and we would focus on that. And indeed, YouTube likes niches anyway, so that was another reason which kind of forced us into doing British politics. And yes, we did have the conversation, given that we're British politics, when the story broke, is this something we included or not. But I think the decisive thing for both of us is that there has been enormous reaction in the UK, and that's the thing that we are going to particularly focus on. We're not experts on American politics, and we're not going to talk about the ins and outs of what is now an investigation, and someone's now in custody, and we're not going to go into that. But there has been a lot of British reaction, and including from the Prime Minister, including from Kemi Badenoch, Nigel Farage, obviously had associations with the movement that he created. Ed Davey, I think, put out a tweet as well. Yeah. So there's been a lot of reaction, but the one thing that obviously, first of all, I would say, obviously, condolences to the family, and this is, and I echo what Matthew said in relation to this is disgraceful. We should settle our differences through debate, through which was what Charlie was doing, which he was doing. He was doing his famous sort of debate me university tours. But the thing that concerned me was the reaction, especially from the left. Some celebrating his death, some playing it down, some instantly going, effectively saying, well, he had it coming because of his views. And this wasn't, and I say this wasn't just some nutters on X, although there were plenty of those as well. There were also people who present themselves to be, let's say, mainstream, who've got big platforms, sort of playing it down, saying that there's too much coverage, saying that ultimately he was a nasty man and so forth. And I just thought, can we just, for a moment, just put all that aside and just reflect on the fact that, this is a disgraceful thing. It's truly awful for his family. But also, surely this has to be the turning point now, the turning point where yes, on both sides there has been heated rhetoric and name calling and so forth. Surely we all now need to reflect, and I do it myself. I must do it as well. Reflect and to say, well, let's conduct ourselves a bit better and not kind of call these people's names, which ultimately whips people up, which ultimately radicalizes people, and ultimately causes people to be hated as well. And this affects all of us, because we're all in some ways our public figures. We all go on TV. And we've all probably encountered people on X as well that have developed like sort of obsessions and hatred towards us as well. So this could happen to anybody, and that's why I say to you, Matthew, this is important, because obviously a lot of the time what goes on in American political culture spills over to our culture, but ultimately, we're going to feel this ourselves, and this has implications for anybody who speaks publicly on politics.
And I'm right in saying, Chris, before coming to Matthew in a second, and again, I hope you don't mind me sharing this, but that you said that this had really affected you this week, right?
Yeah. I mean, for the reasons I just said, it is concerning that obviously I have to be careful here, but obviously given what the police have said today, that people can hate someone to that extent that they could do that for simply sort of voicing political opinions. So it did hit home for me, and I did get quite emotional on social media about it.
And Matthew, I mean, just what Chris was saying just before there has really played on my mind these past few days, as well as I've thought about what I might say, on this podcast. And as we're recording it, I'm on talk tomorrow as well, and I assume we'll probably be talking about it there. That it made me think that, and Chris is right. I mean, all three of us, here on this podcast today, are commentators and are people who talk about the news and who have very strong opinions that many people disagree with. And each time I'm on talk or now GB News on occasion, and I don't blame those platforms for this. They're not responsible for how some of their viewers or listeners think and what they then go on to put online. But each time that I appear, the most vile things are said about me. Now, and I know that this has probably happened to you two from the other perspective. Now, I also I've got broad shoulders, and I have, and it certainly wouldn't ever stop me, going on air and saying what I think. But Chris is right, isn't he? That we've reached a level of debate and dialogue where people don't debate the point; they have a go at the person. They don't debate the issue. They play the man, not the ball, and we've got to stop doing that, right?
Yeah, I think Chris and you are spot on there. This is really, it's a tragedy, because let's not forget, Charlie Kirk was 31 years old, married to a wonderful woman called Erica, and had 2 young kids, right? That's a father, that's a husband gone. And I'm only 25, I'm 26 in literally a few days' time. That's me in a couple of years' time. And that really scares me. I used to have on my Twitter bio, I'll debate you, but I won't argue. And that is a difference. There is a difference between debating and arguing. A debate is exchange of ideas backed up with evidence and a conclusion, and you agree to disagree. An argument is I'm right, you're wrong, and that's the end of it. And I think that's the irony. Charlie Kirk was going around America, going around the world, saying, debate me. I'll give you a platform. Prove me wrong. That was the name of one of his tours. Prove me wrong. And the irony that he would stand up for anybody's free speech, anybody to say what they want to him, for him to be silenced, for him to be shot by someone who disagreed with him, is the ultimate irony. What I want to say is to all of those who are celebrating his death, really look in the mirror. Why are you celebrating the death of someone, as I've just said, is supporting your right to freedom of speech? But also, why would you celebrate that? Why would you celebrate the death of somebody who's a father, who has 2 beautiful children, a wonderful wife? You can disagree with people on politics. You don't have to follow them. You don't even have to look at their content. You don't have to comment. But why would you celebrate the fact that someone would shoot them, take their life, everything that they could do in the future? He could, in 10 years' time, have turned around and gone, do you know what? I've been convinced. I disagree with everything I stood for before. Would you love him then? Or would you still be celebrating the fact that he was killed because he once held these opinions? I just find it disgusting. And frankly, America has had a real serious issue in the last couple of years. We've had Democrat politicians be killed. The husband of Nancy Pelosi, we all know what happened there. And obviously, Donald Trump. Donald Trump nearly assassinated during the presidential election last year. So it's on both sides. There are no winners in this. There are only losers. And you think about here in the UK, this week alone, we had Sharon Hodgson, her Labour MP office torched. We had Mike Freer in London, in a very Jewish community, having his office arsoned. We've had Nigel Farage, milkshake, concrete, all these things thrown at him. And actually, I saw today a TikTok of somebody saying it should be Nigel Farage next. I'm sorry, but people like, I'm not trying to play politics with this, but people like Lucy Connolly go to jail for 31 months for saying that we should burn down a migrant hotel, regret it, delete it, and I think that's a disgusting opinion. But then we have other people openly calling for violence against politicians right now, and I hope that they face the same letter of the law. But let's not play politics with this. This is, at the end of the day, a guy called Charlie Kirk, who set up Turning Point when he was 18 years old, which grew to be one of the biggest pressure groups in American history, who was shot for giving people the chance to say, I disagree with you, and here's why. That's what it is. And that actually is fascism. And I know that's a hard leap for some people to believe, but fascism is the silencing of others because you disagree with them. So the lefties who are celebrating this, and the individual who allegedly, the suspect who shot him, actually they are the problem. They are the fascists, because they silenced someone who was more than willing to give them the chance to agree to disagree. So that's my little reflection on Charlie Kirk, who I watched a couple of his videos, didn't watch many of them, but I have been amazed how many people not only knew who he was, but how intergenerational it was. People Donald Trump's age, people my age, people younger than me, my siblings, cousins, friends. It is incredible what this influencer, the equivalent of Ben Shapiro, or Jordan Peterson level of fame. It's amazing to see what he could do. And at the end of the day, there's a wife who's now a widow and 2 kids who are never going to see their dad again.
Absolutely, and as I say, it was when I saw a video of clips of him and his children that earlier today that I was really affected. But I also think that it's aligned with what he stood for. That he wouldn't want someone like me to try and pretend that I didn't fundamentally disagree with a lot of what So
Yeah.
I did. I think some of what he said about LGBT plus people and others were pretty damn near disgraceful. But the way to answer that is to try and beat him in debate. It's clearly not to. It's clearly not to do what has happened this week. I mean, Chris, what do you think it means for our dialogue now? Kind of, I know, as you say, this happened in America, and it's primarily an issue for America. But Matthew is quite right to point out some of the things that have happened in this country now. We do seem to have reached. People do seem to go from 0 to 100 in like a millisecond, And one of the reasons we set up this podcast, because let's be entirely honest, I mean, some people might think that it's odd that me and Chris. Well, I've had people say to me that it's. I've had people say, "Oh, that your friend that Chris, he's very right wing, isn't he? Like this, as if saying, why on earth are you friends with this person?" But in actual fact, we're friends because we get on. We're friends because we have something in common that we both go on these TV networks and talk about stuff, along with obviously yourself, Matthew. And we're friends because actually, and again, this goes for you, Matthew, that actually they're a nice person, and I can fundamentally disagree with them both, as I clearly do with you two, and you do with me on issues. And that's why it's great to have this podcast, that we can come in here and debate those issues, but still remain friends. That's why it's called Political Frenemies. And we should be able to do that without thinking that the person is kind of fundamentally a hateful person or in some way like fundamentally wrong or broken. I just don't get it.
Yeah, there are some people who are not. They don't seem to be capable of kind of separating politics from the rest of life. And we're able to, to do that in terms of our friendship and in our discussions and so forth. I mean, I've had, because I'm an academic, I work in the universities. I lost friends, I lost colleagues in the university because I voted Brexit. And that was like my first taste of it, and that completely sort of blew my mind. And I never understood this notion that just because you disagree, it means that you can't be friends, or you think that person is a terrible person. I just don't understand it. I'm able to look at someone and say, yes, we disagree on the politics. Sometimes we might vehemently disagree, but ultimately, if you're a good person, in your daily life, and you're a good, kind person to others, then it doesn't matter at the end of the day. You can still have a drink, you can still have a chat, and you still take up a friendship.
Absolutely. So Matthew, I mean, how do we dial this down? Because I mean, and obviously I'm not having a go at them because they very kindly have me on, but haven't we got a case now that we do have media both on left and right? So it's not just one side. The level is always up here. The whole time that they're broadcasting, the level is at 100, right? This is awful. This is awful. Rah rah rah. That in a sense, if people are only consuming these things, that's not necessarily good either, is it? I mean, sometimes you have to dial it down and read a nice book or something, or
Well, I mean, read a nice book. I'll use this moment to plug a blueprint. It's a very easy read. I thanks, Chris. Thank you, Matthew. I genuinely don't really know what to say. I got into politics wanting to help and make a difference. But does that mean that I should get shot if people disagree with my opinion on stuff? I've had death threats in the past. I've had tons of hate. I frankly love the comments when people come after me for hate, because it shows that they've got nothing better to do.
Right.
But you are right. It's the sense of, is this what you sign up for? Is this part of the job? Is this normal? And one of the things I really don't know how we go forward is, do you remember a couple of months ago, people banged on about Blue Sky, making Blue Sky this lovely version of Twitter where there would be no hate, where it was all lovely and sweet and wonderful because X had become the far-right Elon Musk echo chamber of chaos. Well, I don't have a Blue Sky account. But having looked through someone else's Blue Sky account, it is full of hate. It is full right now of hate for Charlie Kirk. People celebrating Charlie Kirk's assassination. No one having anything nice to say about him, his wife, or his kids. I'm sorry, but if you can't even set up a platform to be a world of nice and peace, then where are we going as a society? You mentioned this was a turning point, Chris. Very good use of the phrase.
Yeah.
That's exactly what Charlie Kirk set up. Turning Point USA. It's got to be a turning point. We have to change. We have to take the heat out of politics. And you're right. If that means political commentators like me, us, have to stop saying certain things because it could inflame tensions, then we have to do that. But there's a difference between choosing your words carefully and being silenced. I don't think anybody should be silenced. I'm not telling people who are celebrating his death, how dare you, we should take away your Twitter. I'm just saying reflect on it. Choose your words carefully. Think about this. What does this really say? At the end of the day, this is an assassination of someone who stood up for freedom of speech, stood up for everyone's freedom of speech, not just a certain groups or a certain political orientations. And if anything, the irony is that he actually gave his opponents the opportunity and the freedom to stand in front of a microphone and tell him where they thought he was wrong. And someone decided I wasn't going to do that. Instead, I was going to kill him. And that is cowardice.
Yeah.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And again, I was scrolling through videos and saw lots of people commenting on the fact that he was a person of great faith, and as someone who who shares that faith with him, albeit again from perhaps a different kind of perspective, but who nonetheless has Jesus Christ as my saviour, as he was his saviour. I just have to hold on to the belief that he's gone to a better place and is now being metaphorically held by his heavenly Father. So that's what I try and hold on to, because it's been an interesting few days for me, in the sense that when I first heard about it, I thought it was awful. I thought it was absolutely awful. But I was conflicted about the fact that he said all of these things which I fundamentally disagreed with. But I think you just have to take a step back and remember that first and foremost, this was a human being, and this was a husband, and this was a father, and people can and will no doubt debate his political views, for many years and decades to come. But ultimately, he was a human being. He was a man. He was a husband. He was a father. And, we forget the humanity in our politicians and in our political commentators and in whoever at our peril. So, that's what I want to say on that. Well, folks, obviously, I'm afraid that's kind of a sad note to end the podcast on this week, but we thought it was obviously important to talk about that. So, Mathew and Chris, thanks very much. Mathew, especially, so wonderful to have you on. You're always absolutely box office. It's fantastic.
Thank you.
And I'm hoping that we're paired on Talk again soon, because that would be really
yes,
fun.
Yes, I know. Come on. When you're there tomorrow, make sure to tell them to get me back in the diary.
I will. I absolutely will. Although you've been on telly quite a lot.
Yeah.
And always good. We'll hopefully have you on before the end of the series, Mathew. So that'll be fab.
More than happy.
And Chris, what have you got to say, Lord, Dr. King, Emperor Chris? What are you saying?
No, again, thanks very much. Again, this has been a really great episode, and definitely look forward to having you on again before Christmas. That'll be brilliant. That'll be excellent.
Defo. And Mathew.
Christmas.
Well, quite. I mean, who knows? Well, you could be Prime Minister, Mathew, by then. I mean,
I've got my future Prime Minister mug, but it's got something a bit stronger in there.
And where can people find you, Mathew?
I'm on Twitter, Facebook, TikTok, Instagram at @mgoodwin-Freeman. If you search Mathew Goodwin-Freeman, I'm the only one in the world. I'm not Mathew Goodwin. Mathew Goodwin has a GB News show. He's this big name that everybody loves. I am not him. I'm Mathew Goodwin-Freeman. So a bit more words to put in, a bit more characters to chuck in there, but trust me, it's worth it.
But can I just say, we much prefer you, Matthew. And Chris, and by the way, I'm asking this because a friend of mine said, I've listened to the podcast, really good, Matthew, but can you all say where we can find you? So there you go. I thought this just goes to show that we listen to our listeners. So yeah. Chris, where can people find you?
Yeah, Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, at Dr. Chris Newton, all one word.
Don't forget the doctor bit. Very important.
Yeah.
And you can find me at Mathew Hulbert on most platforms. And of course, you can find us at Frenemies, which is our X account for the actual podcast. Do all the internet-y things, like, subscribe, do all of that, tell your friends. As I say, we got our best viewership, is that the right word? I'm going to use it anyway, of any of our podcasts last week, which was absolutely fantastic. And we'll see how this week's fares. But from Matthew, it's goodbye.
Bye-bye.
From Chris, it's goodbye.
Goodbye.
And we'll see you next time on Political Friends.